Well, Miley and I have come to rest after a lovely 2-hour round walk. Who's Miley, you might ask? Well, let me introduce you. Miley, say hello. Go on, say doggy hello in his Rambo dogwear cool coat. I'm sat here on a bench. I'm dog sitting again, yes again. We've been up the edge, Bradwell Edge. I'm sure it's got a different name, but I am in Bradwell, or known to the locals as Bradda or Bradda, and it is a proper, genuine English country village, and it's gorgeous. And yes, I could live here. And I bet you, if you were here now sitting beside me on the bench, you could live here too. It's genuine, it's honest, it's very English. It's got 3 pubs. I went to pub quiz last night and played solo, although I did get a little bit of input from Michael, the guy on my left, who's a music teacher, who slipped me a couple of answers. But I did very well. I scored 22 out of 30. My glaring error was apparently he was not called Barney the Wonder Horse, he was called Champion the Wonder Horse. But I did very well on the other questions. I've got my co-op latte and a picnic chocolate bar, and I'm going to treat Miley and I to lunch at there's a nice cafe just by the bridge. There's a little bridge cafe, and everything in Bradwell this week has been slow, and it really has slowed me down and made me appreciate that city frenetic pace. Not that that's the pace in Bakewell, you understand, but it's very different in Bakewell. But Sheffield or Liverpool, country pace is very different. There really is no rush over anything. A trip to the post office to post my brother's birthday card can take half an hour, because even though I'm not a local, you end up engaged in conversation with the postie, the postman, and the man behind the counter. His favourite car is an R6, which I think is an Audi, and is quite sexy. Some man-made things are really beautiful. The thing that comes to mind actually is a handmade, handcrafted fob watch. You know, the sort with a chain that you stick in your waistcoat pocket. And I might be over bigging him up here, but my father-in-law Harry, he was a master printer, but he loved to make things out of he made a skiff, I think that's the right word, a model Dutch sailing boat. He made a miniature printing press out of metal, I think brass, but he also loved his clocks and watches. He had a rather splendid grandfather clock, I think, and he was very fond of watches. When we got married, he very kindly gifted me a watch of my choice, I have to say. That was very kind of him. And he had a workshop, and his workshop was immaculate. A place for everything and everything in its place. He was proper old school. Why do you have to be old school to be tidy? That's a bit of a giveaway. That probably means I'm newer school and untidy in my workshop. It's true, I do have video cables hanging all over the place in my desk, my workshop. But he loved watches, clocks and watches, and I do believe he actually machined parts for a fob watch, which ran beautifully. So there are many things that man makes that are beautiful and worthwhile. However, Bradwell sits in the shadow of a man-made monstrosity called Hope Cement Works, and you abandon hope all who enters it. Yesterday, or the day before, Miley and I went on another long round walk through the woods, and we passed through the grounds of this cement works, and the buildings are massive. We're talking sheds, warehouse sheds, industrial sheds, I would say 200 feet high, very, very tall. The chimney itself must be 350 feet high, and it colours. Well, it's an eyesore in the beautiful Hope Valley, and it makes a background hum. You can't hear it most of the time. You might be able to hear the church clock dinging noon in the background, but the cement works itself, it's more of a background hum, to be fair. But ugly. How on earth it got planning permission? And it only takes a moment's thought to realise that it was probably about money, and it was probably about jobs. It was probably dressed up as jobs, to be honest. If there was a real valuing of the environment here when it was established, I'm guessing, I'm sure it's been maintained and kept up, but for as long as I've ever been to the Hope Valley, in 50 years, it's been there. And honestly, it just is a slap in the face, or a wake-up call, begging the question, what do we really value? Now, of course, some people perfectly reasonably would say jobs. If there aren't any jobs in the valley, there's no shops, there's no facilities, there's no pubs. I would think half of the people who live and work in the village from my week here are nomads, in two respects. Nomads in that they live here but they work in Sheffield, or maybe even Manchester, because it's such a lovely cosy village to live in. Who wouldn't want to live here? Secondly, digital nomads. I've met several people already who are artists or designers or web dudes, and so long as they've got a fast internet connection, they're in business. So I don't know how far afield the workers. I had a guess at how many jobs are involved in this Hope Cement Works, and I'm guessing 300. That might be an overestimate, because I dare say a lot of it is mechanised and doesn't require too much manhandling. What slightly unnerved me or worried me on our walk is there was a sign pointing one way, and it simply said tyre chippings, clinker, limestone, ammonia this way. And I thought, whatever that chimney is pumping out, and I'm no industrial chemist, but whatever decontamination facility they've got, you don't really want ammonia, clinker, limestone and chipped tyres coming out the chimney. Anyway, the way we live now. Oh dear. But coming back to the pace of life, there's no point in rushing here. I came here ostensibly as well as to look after Miley, or to let Miley look after me. I came here to do some writing. nothing written, nothing done. I have edited a couple of videos, so I've not been completely idle whilst I've been here. But honestly, the days just take care of themselves. And I'd forgotten what it was like. Have I ever known what it was like? On Lanzarote, yes, I suppose I did, because I didn't work at all on Lanzarote. I did take people for walks in the volcanoes. There are 300 volcanoes on Lanzarote, and I haven't walked them all. I've probably walked 20 with guests. And it reminds me that it was true also on Lanzarote, which is really the Wild West of Spain. It's not really Spanish. Well, it's not the Spanish mainland. It's Canary Islands off the coast of West Africa, and it's more a crossover between Caribbean and Moroccan, Moorish than Spanish mainland. Because during the droughts and the attacks of pirates, the residents of Lanzarote in the 15th, 16th century, they had to escape westwards, ended up in the Caribbean or mostly Venezuela and Colombia, and at festivals like Easter and New Year, Christmas in between. At festivals like Easter and Christmas, family get together. There's lots of families who come over from Colombia and Venezuela. So it's true that on Lanzarote also, the days took care of themselves. Now, this morning I happened to read a blog on a website called Medium. I think it's medium.com, and it was a 70-year-old man, I think an American man, and he was sort of gathering together the 6 lessons of his well-lived life, or what he'd learned from his life, whether well-lived or not. Sort of lessons from the rear view mirror, if you like. And guess what number 1 was? Know your values and stick to them. Now, my contention, and you may disagree with me here, is that our values in modern society have largely been hijacked, and mostly by money related. In our consumer driven society, I would suggest, me too, I didn't want an Audi RS. I wanted an Audi TT. That was my aspiration. And this is true. I waited 10 years until second-hand Audi TTs became, to me anyway, affordable. I've never been into buying a new car. So I had what inspired me in the early days. My values were vicarious. I borrowed my values from my mate Mike English in those early days when I was a young, bushy-tailed businessman, entrepreneur. I remember one summer we took the day off and went to the Test cricket at Nottingham to watch England play New Zealand, and it was Richard Hadley's last match, so it was quite an occasion. Well, all eyes should have been on Richard Hadley and his bowling, but instead they were all on my mate Mike's hamper, because he pulled out, first of all, a bottle of champagne, then roll mop herrings, then game pie, and then Chablis. Well, everybody's head was turned towards what was Mike going to pull out of the hamper next. Well, this turned my head, of course, being very impressionable and wanting to join the club. So I did all that, and yes, I waited 10 years until I'd got my shiny silver Audi TT Quattro. I'd had it a year, by the way, before my son had to tell me what the Quattro stood for, which apparently is four-wheel drive. I didn't even know the car I was in had four-wheel drive. You see, I wanted all the shiny things. I wanted a shiny office, which I did, and to be fair, that was a very deliberate act of what's the word that they use when you put out to the universe, don't you? I'd been reading Julia Cameron's book The Artist's Way and started Morning Pages, and she was very strong on visualization. Also, I'd been reading Shakti Gawain on visualization, so I'd got a very clear idea, and I wanted a glass office with green plants, and I did. And I had a computer company and staff until one day I'd taken over. I'd bought another business and couldn't stand the extra expense, until one day a removals lorry drew up outside my posh office and took all the furniture away. So careful what values you choose to live by, because it has consequences. So I'm just self-reflecting for myself now. For me, when John Butler asked me when I first arrived in Bakewell, and as indeed he asks everybody on retreat at some point, what do you really want? And I said, I want to come to rest. Well, of course, that's after busily trying to be like everybody else with the car and the house, did all that. But truly, my heart's desire was to come to rest. Not, of course, I don't just mean to a nice quiet life in a Hope Valley country cottage. What a fabulous name. It sounds like a Netflix series, doesn't it? Hope Valley. Martin Freeman in Hope Valley. This coming to rest is not just, of course, physical or material, it's spiritual as well. And this coming to rest, for me anyway, is a bit like dispensing of the outer layers of a Russian doll until you get to the solid Russian doll, or the Russian Phil. Well, I'm not Russian. The the Liverpool Phil, the Sheffield Phil, the real Phil, not the vicarious one living the champagne life or the Audi TT life, which was, it's not wrong, it's just slightly off course for me. You need to know where your true north is on your compass, your lodestar, your North Star, if you like. You might say that for me, this aspiration to achieve or to be successful in our culture, for men in particular, especially young men in their 20s and 30s, to be successful, to be someone. There's that lovely quote from Lily Tomlin saying, I always wanted to be someone, but I should have been more specific. Well, I was specific, and it did work. I visualised the glass office and the car, and I do keep. Do you keep vision boards? Do you know about a vision board? I really recommend it. We do it on the third day on the 5 Paths course on Lanzarote. We drive up to the coffee shop with the best view in the world, I promise you. This is Cesar Manrique's Mirador del Rio, with a fabulous 100-metre glass wall overlooking the island of La Graciosa, which is almost deserted. It's got no tarmac roads, La Graciosa. Anyway, we get our blank treasure map out with our coffee and cake, and we fill it with pictures of our ideal life, our vision our perfect future, if you like, the perfect path. It's actually the via creativa, the creative path. So it's a bit like a Blue Peter exercise. We cut out pictures from favourite magazines and stick them on the treasure map of La Graciosa. Then we hop on the ferry over to La Graciosa, put the treasure map in a I'm giving the game away now, in a wooden treasure chest, and we go to Playa de las Conchas, which my friend Stuart and I, we call it Playa de las Consciousness, and we do a little ceremony, and we bury the wooden treasure, the map in the wooden treasure chest in the sand. And honestly, I am being entirely truthful that I've made 4 of these vision maps, vision boards, over the past 20 years, I would say, and everything that I stuck onto those vision boards have come to pass, except the helicopter. I don't know where the helicopter came from. That wouldn't feature now. I think that was a little bit over the top. But honestly, coming to Bradwell, or Bradda as the locals call it, is the fulmination of the quiet life, if you like, the coming to rest that was my primary value, which also took me to Bakewell to make the videos with John. So, my friends, I encourage you to get your glue out and a piece of A3 paper or wallpaper, whatever. Grab a couple of magazines that come to hand, and just spontaneously get the scissors out, or just rip pictures out that you like, stick them on your vision board, and then locate your true north, your primary value, because for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Or is it the other way around? Where your heart is, there your treasure will be found. Go in peace and find your primary value. See you later. Bye. I wanted to add a couple of addendi. Is that correct? Addendums? Dedums? I wanted to add a couple of codas to those comments on the Russian doll idea of coming home to your centre, coming to rest to your centre, and identifying what your priority or primary value is, your North Star, if you like, your compass setting. And I gave the idea that when I was, well, more than the idea, the reality is in my 20s and 30s, my sort of compass was hijacked, I would say now in retrospect, by the ways of the world. Frankly, I wanted to belong, I wanted to be successful, blah blah, usual young man's strutting stuff. Well, not for everybody, but for me it was. And this is a bit like tuning in, or ignorantly not being aware that my radar or my navigation system is tuned into the sort of frequency of the world around me, which is normal, frankly. We live in a culture, we live in a society, we live in a particular time and place where the values of things around us are imbued with, or injected with, or coloured by the culture of our times. And more or less, in my time that I'm thinking of, financial success or business success, or no, even worse than that, being seen to be successful was important to me. And so my tracking device sort of homed in on this frequency, this sine wave. And in contrast, I talked about my my primary value now being coming to rest. And this is a bit like tuning to a different frequency. And there's a lovely little bird just dived into the biscuits, the crushed up biscuits that we've put out for them. I'm back at the cottage now. It's a bit like retuning to, in my case, let's call them spiritual waves, and I have synchronized or phase synchronized, I think the term is, to these spiritual pulses. That's what it feels like to me anyway. You're miles ahead of me. I'm sure you were on the plot much earlier than I was in following you, let's say following your bliss, what's really meaningful to you. And unsurprisingly, I would say now a significant part of the coming to rest is the fact that the work, or the creative work that I love doing now, is apparently helpful to lots and lots of people out there, which is a very important. Two aspects of finding the work you love: one, it's meaningful to you; secondly, it's helpful or a service to others. The other coda is this idea I've talked about, coming to rest. Doesn't mean I'm idle, although some people who know me well would say there isn't much evidence to refute that. But it's not that coming to rest means that I'm idle, although I do get the quarterly magazine called The Idler. So coming to rest does not mean, even in my case, being idle. It's just that everything seems to fit into its proper place. So there is more harmony, more peace, more resolve. And that feels a good place to be, doesn't it? So identify your primary values, set your course accordingly, and find your bliss. This, of course, is what the Five Paths experience on Lanzarote is all about. I call it a reset for the soul. Whether you have a soul or not, whether you think we have a soul or not, it's this underlying ground of your being, this sense of becoming who you know you truly are. And on the Five Paths we sort of reset and realign with your true ground of your being values, and we have a great time. So you're very welcome to join us.